Hi guys. So today we're going to be talking about anti-mask laws. Now, I wanted to cover this because of a recent video by SpiderDevice, who talked about kind of the ups and downs of the RLSH community, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It was a fantastic video, and kudos to him for making it, because I think a lot of people need to realize a couple of the things that are a little more nuanced and a little bit, not everything is as clear cut as it is in fiction, you know. So it was great to have that kind of video, and basically what he talked about was a lot of people he sees in the community basically just want to go out and beat up criminals and stuff. And a lot of people even don't realize what the best way to handle a situation would be. And God knows I probably don't either. But I think it's important to have that critical thinking aspect, and that people know as much as they do about how these situations usually play out. So with that being said, I went ahead and did a bunch of legal research, and this will be the first video of a series that will go through different laws that may affect the real-life superhero community. So today I'm going to be talking about anti-mask laws. In these videos I will go through just a few states in the United States and Canada. Yeah, I picked states that I feel like have the most play in terms of real-life superhero communities. In terms of people that I know where they are, and people I've heard of and I know where they are. Those states are New York, California, Washington, Ohio, Michigan, Florida, and Tennessee. So yeah, I apologize if you're not one of those states, but I will provide a source in the description for you to see if your state has any prevalent anti-mask laws. All right, that being said, first of all, are there any federal anti-mask laws? So no, but it does have an effect on how state anti-mask laws are interpreted, because sometimes state laws can be invalidated or repealed due to them violating the U.S. Constitution or any other federal law or amendment. So some people will protest anti-mask laws and claim it violates equal protection, because many of these laws, they outlaw masks for protests, but they have exceptions for Halloween costumes, or it violates free speech or freedom of assembly, stuff like that. But these are mostly pertaining to people who want to wear a mask during a protest, who want to hide their identity during a protest. And this happens for liberal protests like Antifa, but it is more prevalent in groups like the KKK. Yeah. All right, so I have included this source in the description. I've included all sources in the description, but this is from a website about chronic neuroimmune diseases. Some people may need to wear an air filtration mask when you go outside to avoid the effects of fragrances, chemicals, pollens, and more. I pulled that straight from her website. Her name is Melissa Kaplan. And this page was last updated on May 23rd, 2015. So some of the information may be out of date, but anti-mask laws don't get updated all that often. So you might as well check it out. So on to New York. So New York has Penal Law 240-35, which basically says that if you're masked or disguised while loitering, remaining, or congregating in a public place with other people, or permitting or aiding those people to stay in a public place, is a violation, except if it is entertainment or some sort of masquerade party. And then it says cities with regulations against that type of entertainment need the people to get permission from police or proper authorities. So a lot of these have an exception for entertainment or stuff like that. And I think real life superheroes definitely use the whole entertainment excuse to kind of get by. And in addition, it's important to know that if you violate this code, it's just a violation, I believe, and the government is not required to provide an attorney, and you will be subject to fines, but not jail time. So that's interesting. So that's New York. Kind of makes sense, but again, it's all about being with other people. So I guess if you're by yourself, it's not a big deal. But superhero teams in New York, be a little bit wary of that. So on to Ohio. Ohio has the Ohio Revised Code, Section 3761, Chapter 12, which became effective on October 1st, 1953. It says, no person shall unite with two or more others to commit a misdemeanor while wearing white caps, masks, or any other disguise. So this one is weird to me because if you commit a misdemeanor by yourself with a mask, you're off the hook, but you still committed a misdemeanor. Keep that in mind. And if you're with one other person, it's fine, but two or more others, that's what makes it an extra violation. I thought that was interesting. And in addition to that, you have to commit a misdemeanor while wearing a mask in order for this to be violated. So real-life superheroes, they're not really committing misdemeanors, so I don't see the problem there. Then I looked at misdemeanors in Ohio, like what could be considered a misdemeanor. And there's a bunch of them, like unauthorized use of a vehicle, carrying a gun without a permit, obstructing official business. That jumped out at me. That could be, obstructing justice or obstructing an investigation. That could be something a real-life superhero could be charged with. In addition to that, there was an interesting one, failure to aid a law enforcement officer, which I thought was a little strange because, failure to aid a law enforcement officer, but, how? Are you aiding them in combat? Are you aiding them in an investigation? Or are you just aiding them, So if you fail to aid a law enforcement officer, that's a minor misdemeanor in Ohio, apparently. That's according to criminaldefenselawyer.com. So if you do so while wearing a mask, you get that extra violation. So if you're wearing a mask and there's a cop who needs help, you better help him, I suppose. And I thought that was kind of strange. Again, I'm not a legal expert. I just did some research and compiled some information for you guys so you can use it. So on to California. California is pretty interesting. They have Penal Code Section 185, which says no disguises, complete or partial, for the purpose of 1. Evading or escaping discovery, recognition, or identification in the commission of any public offense. So if you don't commit a public offense while being disguised, you're fine. Again. Or concealment, flight, or escape when charged with, arrested for, or convicted of any public offense. So yeah, and if in California, if you violate this section, you're guilty of a misdemeanor. So again, the commission of a public offense, or the act of being charged with, arrested for, or convicted of public offense, plays a big role here. And if that's not you, you don't have to worry about it, I guess. So in Florida, they have a pretty lengthy one. Section 876, Chapter 13, says wearing mask, hood, concealment, those people cannot enter upon or be upon or appear upon or within public property of any municipality or county of the state. And I didn't really understand what that meant, because it could mean public property belonging to the municipality or county, like the county sheriff's office or the city hall, but it could just be any public property in the county or the city of the state of Florida. And so I don't really know, but then there's the next section, which is Section 876, Chapter 155, the applicability of the previous one. And so I guess it's only applicable if the person has the intent to deprive any person or class of persons the equal protection of the laws, or the equal privileges, immunities under the laws, or preventing the authorities from protecting those people's rights, yada, yada, yada. It's basically saying don't join the KKK. It's part of the laws that are more about protesting, and this is about, if you intend to infringe on people's rights while wearing a mask, or infringe on any group of people's rights, whether it be a racial group or a religious group, you're breaking the law in Florida. So, and Florida's in the South, so, they definitely have laws like this, and a lot of the southern states do. But then there's number 2, which is the mask law is applicable if the person has intent to injure, intimidate, or interfere by threat of force or by force with any person because of the person's exercise of any right secured by federal, state, or local law. So I don't know exactly what rights they mean here, but this is threat of force and injure, intimidate, and interfere. So you got to be careful if you're in Florida. If you're wearing a mask and you intimidate someone and you happen to be infringing on their rights in some way or another, you could be subject to a big violation. And in addition, if you injure them or if you interfere with their lives, the same thing goes. So that's something to be aware of. Then number 3 is with intent to intimidate or threaten, abuse, or harass people for the sake of depriving them of their rights. That could be something too. I don't know. And it says, while engaged in conduct leading reasonably to civil or criminal proceeding against her or him. So if you are in the process of being tried, or if you are convicted, don't wear a mask, I guess. Yeah, because then you're attempting to avoid identification in such a proceeding. So, yeah, that's Florida. Florida's one is really long, and I thought that was interesting. On to Michigan. So, Michigan has Section 750, Chapter 396. Person intentionally conceals his or her identity for the purpose of facilitating the commission of a crime is guilty of a misdemeanor, punishable by the imprisonment for not more than 93 days or less than $500 fine. So, again, this is being guilty of a misdemeanor if you wear a mask while facilitating the commission of a crime. That, I guess, is if you commit a crime or if you're an accomplice, anything like that, you get a misdemeanor. That's interesting. But again, the commission of a crime, plays a big part here. That's really all Michigan had to say, I think. Then I went to Tennessee. Tennessee's is interesting. They have Title 39, Chapter 17, Part 3, which says it's the civil rights intimidation. I suppose that's what this is about. So it basically says you cannot intimidate people into giving up their civil rights. But then one of them says it is a violation to wear a mask with the intent to violate or intimidate others from exercising civil rights. And that, again, Tennessee is quite a southern state, is most likely about the KKK. And the Ku Klux Klan, if you don't know, but you should know, they wore white caps in order to intimidate African Americans and other minority groups. And in the past, they have murdered them. And I think they still protest today. They got some wacky beliefs. It's not scientifically proven, anything that they believe. And don't like them. The KKK was very prevalent in the South, so that's why a lot of these states have these laws. But Knoxville, specifically, the city of Knoxville in Tennessee, this is from Knox News, I found this out. Apparently, it's illegal to wear a mask to intimidate or threaten anyone in order to interfere with police duties, escape discovery or recognition, identification, or capture. So interfering with police duties, that's a big one right there. Interfering with police duties, that could be something that a real-life superhero inadvertently or does on purpose. Yeah, so Knoxville, you got to be a little bit careful. The last one is Washington. So if you don't know, Washington is a state where Phoenix Jones, a very prominent real-life superhero, resides. He lives in Seattle. He operates in Seattle. He's pretty famous. He's got, a bulletproof vest. He's stopped a couple crimes. He's also made a few mistakes. I'm not going to go into what I think of him here, but just take that in mind when reading this next law. So this is Senate bill for Washington 5941, which makes it illegal for someone to stand on a sidewalk, road, or any public ground with face covered. Exceptions are made for religion, sports like winter sports, snowboarding, skiing, masquerade parties, again, Mardi Gras, traditional holiday costumes, so like if you're Santa Claus or something. or I guess Halloween costumes maybe too. But keep in mind, this is just a bill. So this was, I don't know if this was passed. All I found was a news article, and I couldn't find any information on the Washington mask laws that have been passed. If anyone would like to elaborate on this, if anyone's from Washington and they know, feel free to put it in the comments. I'll pin it. And yeah, if this one were passed, it's a pretty big deal. It's just illegal to stand on the sidewalk or any public ground with your face covered. Bye-bye Phoenix Jones, I guess, So Canada also has Criminal Code Section 351, Part 2, called Disguised with Intent. Anyone masked or disguised in some way with the intent to commit an indictable offense is liable up to 10 years in prison. And that indictable offense in Canada is defined as any crime where the fine exceeds $5,000 or the imprisonment exceeds 6 months. So those can be some pretty serious crimes, but you're facing 10 years in prison just because you wear a mask doing it. I think it's interesting. But again, if you're not intending to break the law, you're not breaking the law by wearing a mask. Now, something in the Canadian city Quebec, where they passed a ban on face covering, which prevents a person whose face is covered from delivering or receiving a public service. And this apparently, according to critics, not according to the passers of the law, according to critics, this law was passed with the intent of oppressing Islamic women. An article in The Economist said that the law's real purpose was to ban Muslim women from wearing traditional face coverings. And people who passed the law said religion can be used as a exception on a case-by-case basis. But again, nothing about real-life superheroes. The mask laws, they're not very clear, They're not very clear. It's really weird how it's like, if you break the law while wearing a mask, you're breaking the law. Well, duh. You already broke the law. It's just a little weird. Got to think about some of the social implications of this. I'm just going to talk about that for a second. Because, there are religions, i.e. Islam, where people wear traditional clothing that has their face covered. And I think that is 100% fine. And I think that should be protected under the U.S. Constitution and protected under the amendments that were passed to protect people's civil rights. And I think that anti-mask laws with the intent for sort of hindering the religious activities of people, any law passed to hinder the religious activities of people, I think is not okay. Of course, this was in Canada, so I don't really know how that works. And now I feel dumb for bringing up the U.S. Constitution, but still, maybe not morally right. And this is the first time I've kind of talked about political opinions of mine on this channel, and that is just something that you guys will have to deal with, and I'm sorry if you disagree. But I have a strong moral sense, and I'm very open to other people's opinions, as I am very open to other people's religions. And I'm open to Islamic women wearing their traditional clothing while they receive or provide a public service. I see no issue in that. That's a case where I think mask laws are unjustified. But being someone who wears a mask in public, sometimes, I do think that mask laws can be justified sometimes. For instance, like I said, a lot of these kind of just enhance the charges for someone who committed a crime. So someone who committed a crime or even is on the run from the law, they're in even worse trouble just by covering their faces. I think that is something that is good. In addition to that, the laws that cover being disguised while protesting, like I said, all sides of the political spectrum do this. Antifa protesters have been unmasked by the police. I'm sure KKK protesters have been unmasked by the police. I think that if you have a political opinion, you should own it. And I know that I'm kind of being hypocritical about that because you guys don't get to see my face, but I'm kind of sharing a little bit of a political opinion. Those people are covering their face because they don't want to be harassed for their crazy views. You know, the KKK, they're breaking the law, and I know I'm not too sure about what the KKK does nowadays, but the history of it is that they murdered people, so that wasn't great. And they intimidated people by lighting crosses on fire, and they masked themselves because they were priests, police officers, school teachers. They were parts of our community, but they masked themselves because they didn't want to face the consequences of their beliefs. I think that laws that prevent that can be good because it forces people to take responsibility for their actions. Kind of leads into real life superheroes taking responsibility for actions. You know, if real life superheroes want to be masked, how can they take responsibility for their actions? And I think that's why it's so important that people who want to emulate fiction do it in a smart way, okay? And if you are faced with a situation, if you see someone in trouble, definitely consider the possibility that the police may have a better handle on it than you do. And not even consider, kind of think of that first. Maybe even just call the police first. It's hard to critically think about a situation so fast because it can go south fast, and then something bad could have happened because of your inability to act. That's not just your ability to rush out and deal with the situation in person. That's your ability to either call the police, or your ability to either just leave because that something bad could have happened to you because of your inability to act and your inability to vacate the premises. You know, critically thinking about a situation, but doing so in a way that's fast so that you get the best possible outcome, but you don't get it too late, you know? So, yeah, I think that real life superheroes need to stop worrying about being badass or being cool looking. And I know I make cool looking stuff. I do that on purpose, but trust me, it's not the point. It's really not the point. I have some differing philosophical and moral views from other people in the real life superhero community, but most of us can agree that we eventually want to live in a world where superheroes are a little bit more commonplace, where people are kind of encouraged to step up for other people. And that doesn't have to be in the vein of superheroes. It could just be a public attitude. It could just be a common attitude that people have, that where people look up to people who help others instead of looking up to those who care a lot about themselves or have a lot of money, or it's a world that I think most real life superheroes want to live in one day. But as SpiderDevice said in his video, speaking of which, link is in the description for that, there are real life superheroes who are like, I am so angry, I'm so mad, I just want to beat up criminals. And it's like, go take care of yourself, man. Seriously. If that's your creed, you got problems. And you got to deal with those problems before you start dealing with other people's problems, all right? Look, I mean, I'm no stranger to having some emotional issues, okay? But the fact of the matter is, like, you're in no position to make critically thought out decisions about very, very critical situations if you're in that state of mind. Do not do it, okay? Like, that's not what this is about. It's not what this is about at all. So yeah, hope you enjoyed this first kind of talk through of real life implications for superheroes. I guess through this research, I just hope to kind of discover how superheroes could fit into this real world that we have, because the real world is complicated, guys. It's not simple. It's not simple. I hope this video can serve as a resource for other people, and kind of a bunch of mask laws in one place, so it makes it kind of easy for you guys. I hope you come back to this video to refresh yourself every once in a while, because it's important to know. With that in mind, I just want to point out that masks do kind of intimidate people, unfortunately, and also fortunately in some instances. But like I said, I don't really know. It's very nuanced. It's a very nuanced topic. And I'm not really discussing it. I just want to provide information, but I am kind of discussing it a little bit too. And that being said, if the cops see you wearing a mask, they have every right to be suspicious. And it scares me personally, because like I don't want to deal with a police officer wanting me to unmask myself if I don't want to unmask myself to him. But if he wants me to, I kind of have to, and I can't really bring up any of these laws, and you can't really bring up any of these laws and be like, oh, well, I don't have the intent to commit a crime. And the only reason why an officer's response for that would be, oh, never mind, was if they didn't want to get in trouble for it. But the thing is you're not worried about the officer getting in trouble for it. You're worried about your identity being compromised. And even if the officer goes to court after unmasking you, you still got unmasked. There's nothing you can do about that. It happened. The mask has always been a tricky thing. Concealing identity has always been a tricky thing, and it's going to be a tricky thing in this world. And I think that until, hopefully, when and not if, superheroes become a real thing in a real way, that, masks are always going to kind of cause suspicion. And there's not much that we can do about that. And I don't really know what to do about it, but that's just the info, and that's my thoughts on it. So hope you guys enjoyed. I just want to give thanks to my patrons: D. Showalter, Future Spider, Isaac Lichtenstein, Caleb Choice, Pete, Spider Kid, Splitshot, Tyler, and Vigilantix. If you are not a patron and you want to become one, feel free to donate. Link is in the description. Post updates there every once in a while. I post polls. I post little videos that are not released to everyone else. Little tiny ones. Yeah, so see you guys in the next video. Have a good night. If it's night, I don't know. Maybe it's day. Have a good day. Have a good time. I'm so tired. I need to go to bed. Okay, stay amazing.